Okay, we'll open our February 28th workshop and we'll rise and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty
with
and
liberty
justice for all.
for all.
Wendy, you want to take the roll call?
Mike Hobson,
Here.
Marilyn Ertley,
Here.
Deborah Nelson,
Here.
Don Vanny,
Here.
Jen Schweddy,
Here,
Michelle Blythe,
Here.
Heather Logan.
Here.
Madam Mayor, I move for approval of the agenda as presented.
Second. Question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So our first item this evening is we have a special guest speaker for a presentation from the Affordable Housing Authority of Snohomish County.
You're not signing.
Oh,
He has not signed in.
he has not signed in yet. Very sorry. Really looking forward to Chris's presentation. So we'll move into our workshop items then. And the first up is the request for airport intern position. Is Marty signed in? There he is. Good
Hi.
evening, Marty.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council persons and people. We're bringing a cab forward for the council's approval tonight for the airport is requesting an airport intern position. This is a position that we've had traditionally at the airport. We haven't really utilized it in the last few years. Based on the increased demands, responsibilities, changing challenges over the last several months in particular, but the last couple of years, we really have a demand. This is a 2-year position, and at the time the term ends, we can either go with another intern, or we can talk about possibly putting that person on as a full-time employee. So at this point, we're looking to get that person on as soon as possible to help with some of the additional things that are going on. Aviation is a pretty big demand on the staff's time at this point with their development of their aircraft. Construction, there's some other items that have come up too that we're pretty short-handed right now. So that's if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Heather and then Jan.
Thanks, Barb. Hi, Marty.
Hi there.
Is the $66,000 in change, is that for 1 year or for both years?
That's a year.
A year. Okay.
Mhm.
So then what is the difference between an intern and a temporary position that would be a 2-year temporary hire?
They've called it an intern. It's in the past, it's been an internship for a 2-year term.
Okay.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Okay.
That's been the title has been an intern position.
Okay. Thanks, Marty.
You bet.
Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, my question was actually on pay too. How much does that come out to be for an hour? Because I don't know what all that includes, but how much are they?
I don't recall off the top of my head, but that's the upper end of it. We have a lower starting. This is kind of a max out point. I don't know if James is on here. He was helping me with numbers on that. But
I'll address that, Marty. For this is a an estimate on it because it includes benefits, and we don't know where those benefits would land. I'll get you the range of the hourly rate. I'll email council with that so that you have that information. This dollar figure includes benefits, and like I said, it's an estimate because we're estimating it would depend on whether it's a single person or a person with a family as to what the benefits cost. And I'll just add that we have traditionally used this position over the years. We haven't always had it, but we've had it in place, and we filled it on an as needed basis over time. This has been a great tool for staffing. We've been able to bring people in as interns for a couple of years, and we've had some more successes than not of these positions filling permanent full-time roles within the airport administration over the years.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Deborah?
So with that amount, it's not in the packet. It must have been in the monthly reports that I read that said that their airport's in good condition financially, that this doesn't present an issue, right? So it's not taking from some other part of the airport, correct?
No, it's not, but yeah, they have plenty of money in operating to be able to cover this.
Okay, that's what I thought. I didn't know where I
We
read
only
it.
budgeted this for this year because, of course, next year, if you approve the position this year, then it would be presumed that when we do the budget for next year and the following year, we would include that
Right.
position.
And I appreciate it. I think it must have been in the monthly reports too that I read how this is kind of our succession planning. So I just like it when I hear the departments doing that also. So thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Deborah. Mike, did you have your hand up?
Yes, you mentioned, Marty, that you had increased amount of challenges at the airport, and then you specifically mentioned aviation. And I'm just curious as to what challenges you're speaking of, and how is aviation creating more work for the airport personnel?
Well, one of the things that's going on right now is they're in development with their aircraft for a certification. So there's a series of testing milestones that they need to meet. Involved in that is high-speed taxis, low-speed taxis, braking, a lot of different engine runs and that require the main runway to be used for that purpose. So we need to close the runway. That involves having people out there to monitor it for traffic. We need to put lighted X's on and off the airfield. We need to coordinate with the FAA POCC that turns on and off the localizer, which is the navigational aid that's there. So there's a lot of internal coordination that goes on with aviation, with the FAA, and with our local tenants and users. So it's quite a production just to shut it down for a couple hours. But eventually they will, this will be a little more streamlined as they enter production. But specifically at this point, it's very, very busy with them. And additionally, things like construction and that sort of thing, we're involved placing NOTAMs out. There's lots of cranes up in the air for all of the building that's going on, not just at the airport, but further south in the industrial area that's being developed, that we need to coordinate with the FAA for NOTAMs and notifications for aircraft coming into the area. So just a lot of activity going on, and we don't have a control tower, so therefore we're responsible for making sure that aircraft in the area are aware of some of the restrictions and the closures.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Michelle had her hand up as well.
Hi, Marty.
Hi there.
So thank you for giving those details, and I appreciate that question because I've been on commission for a couple of years and had the opportunity to hear all the things that are going on. So I know that you've been very busy. I've enjoyed hearing the details on that. My question is, how long have you been without this position?
It's been about 3 or 4 years now. Almost everyone who's worked through, who's been hired on, Lorraine's a good example, who came on as an intern for this position, and she's been full-time with us now for 7 years. Monroe Whitman is also another one that kind of moves through this process as well. And my predecessor, my position, Tim Manzanita, has actually started there as an intern and worked all the way through. So it's been a long-standing program, but we haven't had it for about 2 or 3 years now.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Okay, any other questions for Marty? Sounds like the council is pretty thorough in the questions. All right. Thank you, Marty.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Bye.
Wendy, has Chris arrived yet?
No, we have not.
Okay, would you let me know if he does?
Yes, I sure will.
All right, next up is our financial report for January 2022. And Kristen Garcia is here to present that to us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, members of council. Typically in January, it's pretty early in the year, so I don't have usually a lot to cover. So a lot of what I'm going to go over tonight is just updating the council on a few things. I did want to touch on where the city's 2022 property tax levy landed. If you recall last fall when we set our levy amount at the 2.75 million, we were targeting a levy rate of about 75 cents per thousand of assessed valuation as part of our commitment to the taxpayers during our annexation process. And the certified levy rate turned out to be just within a fraction of a penny of that. So we did meet our commitment on that. Our sales tax is still seeing the benefit of the Amazon project. Most of the growth that you'll see if you compare January of 2021 to January of 2022 is because of that project. But we did see some growth also in the retail industry. I expect we'll continue to see some benefit from the Amazon project still this year for the next couple of months. I also did want to thank Snohomish County really quick. We did receive another grant for them to help support the City Social Services Fund and the outreach work that Officer Thomas and the embedded social worker do. The grant was a little over $6,200, so we do appreciate their support for that work. In your packet, I did include a 2021 year-end reconciliation of the growth fund. It wasn't quite ready last time when I presented the December report because we were still working through some of our reconciliation details. So I want to point out that that has been included. Basically, it's a summary of the larger projects that have been funded by park and transportation mitigation fees over the past 5 years. And it also provides a summary at the bottom of when the park and traffic mitigation fees need to be spent by. And those fees do have a 10-year spend by period. So just so council knows, we do track those permit and fees on a very detailed basis to make sure we hit that within spend by date. The utility delinquent list, it is getting smaller. I did make note last time that we talked that our January list was down to 85 accounts from over 200 in December. Our total outstanding balances was about 35,000, so significant improvement again from December. And actually our February list did go down even further. It was below 70. So its accounts are getting back on track. So go in the right direction. And then the last item I wanted to touch on is I wanted to give council an update. I haven't done that in a few months on where we were with the capital facility needs assessment. If you recall, we signed a contract with Ming Analysis sometime late last fall. They have completed all of the site visits for the buildings that were identified as part of this project. They were provided 3 years of utility data for each of the facilities under review. They are going through that right now. They're in the process of analyzing all the data and putting together the report. I expect that probably to come out within the next month or two. I do have a follow-up meeting with them on Friday, so I'll have a little bit more information in terms of their timing. But just wanted to let you all know where that was at. And once it's ready, we'll certainly bring that to council and talk about it in more detail. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kristen. Jan has her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, how many people have we had to turn off the electricity on or water on?
Well, our list in January was 85. And so anyone who didn't pay, so how it works is we identify people that are on the shut-off list that haven't paid. That turned out to be about 85. And then people do have the opportunity then to pay before the end of the day, before water is shut off. I believe, if I recall, it was about 30 to 40 accounts that were actually, water was turned off.
Oh, that's sad. Thank you.
Any other questions for Kristen on her great report this evening? Mike?
Yes, I should have given you a heads up on this, Kristen, but I asked this question a week or so back. How much, what is the balance of the art fund in terms of the amount that's designated to go toward the art fund that's in the general budget?
So how that program works is council has adopted an ordinance where 10% of the construction-related sales tax that is collected in the general fund will go into the public art fund to fund projects that are awarded through an application process. That ordinance also states that the fund balance cannot exceed 200,000, meaning if we had $3 million of construction sales tax, we wouldn't be able to send the full 10% because it would hit over that 10%. So the fund balance right now is less than 200,000. I didn't transfer any more at the end of 2021 because I felt like we had enough in there to cover the projects that were in the 22 budget. So I will evaluate that fund balance as per the ordinance and make a decision in 2022 whether we need to pull money out of the construction sales tax to replenish what was used out of that fund.
Yes, yes, I understand that. I guess my question, though, if it's answerable, is that that 10%, even though you can only designate no more than $200,000 in any given year, but there's more money in the general fund from that 10% that went into it that goes to the art fund. It can't be spent right now this year because that's held to 200,000. But there must be another piece of that. The rest of the balance of that 10% should be in the general fund somewhere. And I was just curious as to what that number is.
I would have to calculate that. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but yes, the construction sales tax sits in the general fund. And if we don't transfer the 10%, yes, I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I can calculate that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Kristen this evening? All right, thank you very much, Kristen.
Thank you so much.
So our speaker has now made it here. So if, with the council's permission, we'll let Chris come in and give his presentation before we have Mark's report. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening. Sorry about the delay. It turns out I got the link to the 22nd, February 22nd Zoom meeting, and I only realized that 2 minutes before and then scrambled to try and get it. So you might all have a couple emails from me saying, I can't get in. So I apologize for that. Should I just take it away or?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
I introduced you earlier when I thought you were here, so.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm sure it was wonderful. Okay, well, I will go ahead and share my screen here and get the presentation fired up. Just a moment while I work on that. Where'd it go? Hold on now. Sorry, a little discombobulated, but I'm getting it. Okay, can you all see my screen with the thumbs up?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the introduction, Mayor Dilbert. Thank you for the invitation to come speak here tonight. Again, my name is Chris Collier. I'm the program manager for the Alliance for Housing Affordability, and here to give just a perspective on where Arlington sits in the broader county landscape of housing and housing affordability. So a quick background on, in case Mayor Tolbert didn't cover it, what the Alliance is. The Alliance for Housing Affordability is a multi-jurisdictional collaborative that is intended to provide data and analytics, technical expertise, and education and outreach on the issue of housing affordability to all of its members, including the city of Arlington, in understanding housing affordability. Why is it the way it is? What can we do about it? How do we go about doing that? What's going on in other places? All of that work is what I am here for, and I am a 1/15th City of Arlington staff person. So please feel free to reach out and ask me questions. Help me help you. I can't anticipate in advance every question you might have, so please feel free to reach out by email or phone. If you have any questions, every question's a good one. It helps make my work better, makes me think about things differently, and answer more questions that I didn't think of already. So every question's a good one, and I welcome each and every one. Alliance member jurisdictions is pretty much everyone in the county except Darrington, Index, Gold Bar, Sultan, and Breyer. And so with that, I will get into the presentation. Why are we where we are? It's important to consider that there are a lot of different steps on the housing continuum, and I'm only going to talk really about two, maybe 2.5 of them tonight. I'm talking about homeownership and market rate rental housing, mostly homeownership. But if we don't take action at homeownership, that can translate down into through the system. The tools and policies that you use to build homeownership or rental housing or the policies for income restricted housing, they're all different, but they're all in a related spectrum. It's like a Newton's cradle. And what I'm going to show you tonight is how we're continuing to put more pressure on one end in the home ownership side. And you can imagine then how that translates down through the system of the different steps in the housing continuum and leads to severely cost burdened households in the city of Arlington, people that are becoming homeless, and so on. So with that, let's get to the data. In one slide, I'm going to try and explain the region, why the region is where it is. Going year by year, looking at new households compared to new units built. You have 1,106 new house or more households constructed, or housing units, built in 2003 than new households. Let me say that again. 1,106 more housing units were built than new households were established in 2003. Now, obviously, that unsold or unrented unit doesn't get demolished on January 1st of the next year, and so this adds up over time into a growing surplus of housing, 6,422 in 2003. And so you track this blue bar, our total surplus, if we start counting in the year 2000, and you'll see what happens in 2015, 16, 17. We take gigantic bites out of our housing surplus. We have a huge inversion in the number of households coming to Snohomish County relative to new housing units being built, to the point that we're functionally out of housing by 2019. And we remain in more or less margin of error territory in 2021. And this is supported by the Northwest Multiple Listing Service, who reports in the last 2 report cycles, they've said we have 6 and 9 days of housing inventory available. That means if no new homes come on the market starting today, how many days of sales do we have at the rate we go before we're out? That figure should be 6 months, maybe 4 months. Today it is 6 to 9 days. That is tiny. That is itty bitty. And so what that tells us is that our housing supply is very limited. And when we have a scarce supply of a good, the price for that good goes up. And that's represented by this brown line, the median sale price for a single family detached home in all of Snohomish County, adjusted for inflation. So the median sale price has risen by almost $400,000 in the last 20 years after you account for inflation. Now, most homes still, in Snohomish County anyway, aren't making all cash purchases on their home. They're financing their home purchase with a bank loan. And so given typical loan terms that you see across the bottom of the screen in fine print, 3.5% interest, a 30-year term, 10% down payment, no more than 26% of your income goes to your mortgage, no household debt, real property tax, real insurance figures. This is the required income for that median home to obtain bank financing. It goes from $82,000 in today's value, again, this is adjusted for inflation, to needing $157,000 of combined household income to get a bank for a bank to loan you the money to buy that $700,000 home. Now, if you juggle the terms around a little bit, you have stronger financials, these change. If you can put more down, that changes. But I checked these figures out with a local lender and they said, yeah, that's about what we see. That's a good average. So if you know what you need to make, this is what we actually make. What we actually make is the median household income in Snohomish County, adjusted for inflation, has risen by, let's do some quick math here, $8,000 and change in the last 20 years, compared to the actual required income to buy the median house. So this is where the problem starts. The degree to which these two lines diverge is where our problem starts, because we're looking at single-family detached home ownership. And then if you can't do that, you might look at townhomes and condos. If you can't do that, you might look at renting and on down. So speaking of renting, this is the average inflation-adjusted rent for a studio, 1-bed, 2-bed, and 3-bed in all of Snohomish County from 2000 to 2020, where the data stops right before the pandemic struck. You can see that rent basically stayed flat even through the bubble of the recession. Rent stayed flat, but when we started to experience market scarcity, when that blue bar in the background starts to go down, rent immediately responds. When we experience scarcity, the rental market is the canary in the coal mine that says scarcity is taking hold, rents are going up. So, digging into this slide a little deeper, looking at who can buy where city by city, I will present the previous information kind of city by city. So single family homes, townhomes, and condos. The Snohomish County average is 700,000, as I mentioned. For townhomes and condos, that's 500,000. So given the same loan terms, in parentheses, you see the required incomes. See the city of Everett? Sorry, the slide's a little off, I just realized. City of Everett, and over the city of Everett, you're seeing the required income for these two home products in the city. Lake Stevens, Marysville, there's Granite Falls, city of Arlington, Stanwood, and Darrington. So I'll let you take this in a little bit since the animations were a bit backwards. Arlington's median sale price for a single family home within the city limits is $515,000. And for a townhome or condominium, that's $397,000. So to live in the city of Arlington at the median, you need between $87,000 and $113,000 of household income, given, again, the same loan terms. So now let's dig a little deeper in occupations and what they make. This comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and this is looking regionally. Snohomish, King, and Pierce County all rolled into one figure, which I think is appropriate because if you work in King County, but you can't afford to live there, you might look north in Snohomish or south in Pierce. So in the region, we'll look at the 25th percentile and 50th percentile incomes for a selection of over 4 occupations that I selected out of over 700 the Bureau tracks. Computer systems analysts make between $89,000. That's a 25th percentile income. I figure that's kind of starting salary for this role. 50th percentile, that's the median income for a computer system analyst. You're not able to live in the city of Arlington, except in a townhome or condo. Management analysts. Building inspectors, which I put in a while ago, kind of as a sick joke to a city staff person, because they're the ones out inspecting the buildings, but they aren't able to live in almost any of them. A building inspector in the region can live in a townhome or condo in Everett, Stanwood, or Darrington. Or a home in Darrington, excuse me. Locomotive engineers. A locomotive engineer on a single income can afford a home in Darrington or a townhome in Everett. That's it. We need our rail system. So let's look a little South County, kind of see where this problem is originating from. And same approach, the table and the required incomes over each city as it pops up. City of Edmonds, $908,000. Linwood, $700,000. Mount Lake Terrace, $609,000. Mill Creek, the first city in Snohomish County history to sell for over $1 million at the median. Edmonds was over that until I got autumn and winter data, and the price came down a little bit. So Mukilteo, City of Everett again, Lake Stevens, and Snohomish. So now we're looking at things a little more expensive, occupations that make a little more. I included 75th percentile income for, you're well into your career, maybe you're at the end of your career. Physicists. Remember, the loan calculations, required income calculations, assume no household, no debt, no student loan debt. If you're a physicist, I'm betting you're coming out of college with some student loans to pay back. Emergency management directors and administrative law judges. Mom, Dad, I'm a judge. Great, son or daughter, the world is your oyster. You can live wherever you want. You can do anything. You can be anything. You're a judge. That's amazing. Well, maybe not housing. A judge is looking at nothing but townhomes in southwest Snohomish County. That's all a judge in Washington State can afford. And audiologists that I include as a reminder that we need a lot of specialty occupations to make society run. If you ever need hearing aids, hearing assistance, you'll probably see an audiologist. But where are they living? There's 4 places they can live: Linwood, Mount Lake Terrace, Everett, and Snohomish townhomes. That's fine. The problem is Mukilteo too. Those 5 cities make up 488 home sales in the Puget Sound those 5 cities. There are over 435,000 people that make between $99,000 and $69,000 a year that work in occupations that at the median pay that much. There's a gigantic mismatch there. So when I put this slide together, I got really grouchy back in 2021 because things had got to that bad. 2021 was a real change year. And I looked at the highest median wage occupations that I could find reported by the Bureau. Dentists are the highest median wage occupations in the region. A dentist cannot afford to buy on a single income in Mill Creek. A nurse anesthetist is really scraping to buy a home in Edmonds. An internal medicine physician, same story in Mukilteo. These are the top. It gets no higher than this. You can be a rock star lawyer that makes way more. You can be Bill Gates, of course, but that's only one person. For the occupation, if you're telling your kids, what to do in college so they can live anywhere they want, the answer is nothing. You need supplementary income or secondary income to be able to afford to live in these 3 cities in Snohomish County. So this is an issue that now truly affects everyone. So just how much have things changed? Looking only at single family homes, let's look at how much the sale price for a single family home has changed year by year. I have it in 5-year groupings. You see Arlington second in from the left versus Snohomish County. From 2000 to 2004, how much did the sale price for a single family detached home in Arlington change? Little over 10%, maybe 15% over 2000. 2005 to 2009, how much did it change? Not very much. The recession has struck by this point, 2008, 2009. The recession is dragging home prices down in Mill Creek and Monroe, and Arlington seems not far behind. 2010 to 2014, home prices decrease almost across the board, except in Edmonds. So this is the depth of the recession right here, where prices are crashing. Homes are being sold for less and less money than the year before. But then 2015 to 2019, and then the last 2 years. So let me back up. This is 15 years of home sales data. Most cities average out to basically the increase in median household income. But then 2015 to 2021, that's 7 years, we break the chart. And I actually originally did this for single family homes, townhomes, and condos. And when I did it for just single family homes, Bothell rose so much, it broke my chart and I had to redo it. I had to redo the y-axis because Bothell is just blasted at the top. So the point of this slide is that things are fundamentally different than they have been in the previous decades. That something different is happening. And we cannot look back, as we try to address this, we can't look back to the old school playbook of decades past and say, well, let's crack that open, that will save us. That's not the case, because whatever we did then is what led us to today. So we have to think different, and we have to recognize that we are in different circumstances today than we were then. So let's look, and then net price change. So this is the one that if you're looking to give a single number to people, you can say, City of Arlington, 85% more expensive than 21 years ago. Darrington, 93% more expensive than 21 years ago. That's another point to take away from this slide, is that these price changes they affect everyone, everywhere. I presented to the town of Darrington last week, and this was my point, that they need to be aware of this because this covers the entire county. So you can see why the net change is a little lower. It's because that net change had to overcome the negative price change in 2010 to 14. Just a little nerding out. So what homes sell for less than $400,000? So inflation adjusting the sale price in 2002, appropriately inflation adjusting that to today's dollars. Let's look at what sold back then for less than $400,000. So again, city by city, and 2004 to 2000 or 2000 to 2004, you see that in Arlington, 95% of all home sales in that 5-year period sold for less than $400,000 in today's dollars. You see that, we're more or less continuing as we head into 2005 and 2009, 2010 to 14, 15 to 19. Then look at the percentages of the last 2 years. 26% of all home sales in the city of Arlington, single family, townhomes, and condos, have sold for less than $400,000. And you see the county insert on the right. 15% of all county home sales are less than $400,000. I can take a little peek into the future by setting this figure down to $200,000 instead of $400,000. I picked $400,000 just because that's about what I bought my townhome for that I'm presenting to you from tonight. That's in the range that I was in. Well, that's, I'm new, I'm a first-time home buyer, so that's kind of what I was looking for. I can set this to 200,000 and take a peek into the future and tell you that $200,000 home sales are extinct by 2018. There are no homes selling for 200,000. So again, this is countywide. You see Darrington even declining by almost 20%. So one thing that I am often asked is, but what about combined income households? So let's have that discussion really quick. Except that combined income households are less and less common. This is 25 to 34-year-old households that you see are by more than half not living with a spouse, and it's not explained by people living with a roommate, boyfriend, girlfriend, parents' basement, something like that. So young people, 25 to 34-year-olds, are increasingly trying to live financially independently. And overall, single-family households are on the rise. This is both young people and seniors that are single. So as a raw number, nationwide, single-person households on single incomes are trying to make it work. But still, let's have it. Lots of people have combined incomes, so let's have that conversation. So across the bottom, you see the required income for all single-family townhomes and condos in all cities. Arlington's at 109,897. And then a couple incomes. Occupational therapists, $88,000 at the median. Project management specialists, $85,000. Architects, which might surprise you. You might expect that architects make a truckload of money, but on the median, this is what that occupation makes. Museum curators, accountants, EMTs and paramedics, marriage and family therapists, second from the top in the middle column, is something I like to call out because if you ever go to a therapist, family therapist or something, you're stressed out about life, they probably are too, because they make $41,000 and this is their reality if they don't already own a home. I guarantee you they're stressed about money. And because the industrial trades are important not only to Arlington, but also the entire county, a selection of industrial trades, sheet metal workers, heavy equipment mechanics, and so on, inspectors, weighers, and so on. So let's combine incomes. Floral designer marries a travel agent. Their combined income of $95,000 affords them a house in Darrington or Gold Bar. Or a sheet metal worker and a security guard. I don't know, play matchmaker. We're playing Match.com tonight. So, see what combinations work. Because there's over 700. I picked some to get the creative juices flowing. The point is that fewer and fewer combined income households can attain home ownership, no matter how hard they try. That's a growing reality for more and more households in Snohomish County. Is that even with combined incomes, you're not able to afford a home. So what this means for affordable housing, mostly so far I've talked about home ownership. Rent is kind of I mentioned that, but let's talk about affordable housing. Big A, big H, affordable housing. So harkening back to this first data slide, rent has risen by 49% from 2000 to 2019, and income's gone up by 9% in that same time. The data that I'm still parsing through for 2021 shows that rent is now about $300 a month higher. So this number is certain to go up. Housing choice vouchers that you might know as Section 8 were supposed to be temporary, believe it or not. They were supposed to be temporary assistance that a household uses for 2-3 years while they maybe go back to school, get job training. Some are able to improve themselves because the feds are paying 70% of their rent. They're supposed to be temporary, now they're usually permanent. 75% of the Housing Authority's voucher portfolio is senior, disabled, or both. They're senior, disabled, or they're senior and disabled. In those circumstances, how could you expect a senior household, for example, to increase their income enough to now enter the private rental market when rents are rising so fast? So it's now, as you'd expect, a 7 to 10 year wait for a Section 8 voucher, if you can even get on the wait list, because most of them are closed right now. But if you're on, what you're told is it's 7 to 10 years. Once you get to the front of the line, it takes you an average of 7 days longer than it did 2 years ago to actually use your voucher somewhere. And your chance of success has gone down by 4% on average. So you have, if I remember right, 90 days to use a voucher before it is taken from you because you haven't used it. But you have to find a place that actually that is rent reasonable according to HUD. You have to find a place that rents as a studio, for example, rents for at or below $1,500 a month. That takes a long time. It's taking people longer and longer to use their vouchers, and it's down 4% in actual successful utilization and lease up. So what this looks like is that we have 77,355 very low income households. That's a household of 3. That's the average household size in the county that makes below $55,000 a year. We've got estimated 77,000 of them. Now, assistance to help them. The Housing Authority has about 6,200 vouchers or income restricted units. This is the total from the Housing Authority. Everett Housing Authority has 3,600. Countywide, we have an additional 10,733 income restricted housing units. That's it. 73% of our qualifying very low income households have no assistance available for them. There's no voucher, there's no unit. They're going to try to make it work somehow, paying an outrageous amount of their income to rent. 50, 60% is not uncommon. Living in a car, doubling up in a home, couch surfing, or being truly homeless. And I'll remind you, this data is from 2019, pre-pandemic. So a little bit of Arlington specific data and how much the price of a home has changed in the city from 2000 to 2021, excuse me. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. It's a truckload of numbers, but this is something for your packet. I'll send this presentation out as a PDF to the council after so you can pore over this. These are just a selection of pieces of information. You can look at single family homes. This is within the city limits. Single family home has risen in price by 84%. Townhomes and condominiums only within the city limits. Any home that sells for less than $400,000, what stands out to me there is a decrease of 91, 92%. Arlington School District, I can sort by that as well. So this is the school district, and you can see how prices have changed, 100% price increase in the school district. And any home type in the Arlington School District that's less than $400,000. The real thing to keep an eye on here is the percentage change. That's the percentage change from 2000 to 2021. You see the PITI, it's noted there, but PITI is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So if you have a mortgage, this is what you're actually paying in your monthly mortgage costs. And one thing I'd note is that $24.43 a month for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, that's pretty much a 2-bedroom rent in Snohomish County right now. That's pretty dang close to what HUD sets at the fair market rate for a 2-bedroom. So it's renting is not a much more affordable option than already owning a home and paying the mortgage on it. So a couple conclusions in my final slide. Puget Sound Regional Council estimates that region-wide, Snohomish, King, Pierce, and Kitsap counties, we have a 50,000 unit shortfall today. That's from their regional housing strategy that's linked in this bullet point. By 2050, that number will be 800,000. We have an 800,000 housing unit shortfall in the 4-county region. What this tells me is that every city, town, and county has a critical role to play. As I showed, this issue reaches as far as Darrington, it reaches as far as Olympia, south of Olympia. It reaches out to Spokane. You might have seen an article in the Seattle Times about that today. Or was it the New York Times? That Spokane is now, their hair's on fire. Boise, Idaho, too, because people are now migrating out to Spokane and Idaho. The Arlington Housing Action Plan is excellent. I've reviewed this a few times, and I have everything good to say about the Housing Action Plan that the city of Arlington has implemented, and I look forward to seeing each of those strategies implemented in due course. But Arlington cannot alone fix this issue, and you shouldn't have to. I didn't look up the actual square mileage of the city of Arlington, but that square mileage is not the sole solution to the region's problems. This is something that involves Seattle, it involves Darrington, and every places all in between. Everyone has a part to play, and that's the important thing that we often forget or lose sight of in local municipal discourse is everybody's got a part to play. And some cities stepping up, like Arlington and their housing action plan, and other cities opting not to, that's a real killer. Because you shouldn't have to do this by yourself. This is an issue that nevertheless fundamentally threatens the community character that we value so much, and that is our people. I have heard as people talk about change, change of structure, but our community character. What I think is much more important is the character of the community from the people that live there. And what's happening now is people are being economically displaced from their communities. Refusing to let change happen in a community only ensures that people will be economically displaced. If you have to rebuy a home in the city of Arlington today, can you? For many people, the answer is no. So that is what is fundamentally at risk. It's not our architectural style, it's our people. There are two different issues and two different issue areas, the immediate and the long term. And I often see advocates for affordable housing or housing affordability butting heads on this, but I think that we need to do both. There's the immediate and the long-term need. The immediate need is supporting that 73% of our households that have no assistance available, that are struggling tonight in your community right now. That's supporting housing unstable households, homeless households. That means money, That means at the end of the day, that's a money question. That's how much money can we allocate from the public fund in the public interest to support the community. But longer term, that's policy change. That's our housing action plan. That's around land use. That's the comprehensive plan coming up in 2024. And that's why this conversation is so important, is to get these wheels turning well in advance of the comprehensive plan update. That's where the next opportunity is to really get your hands on this issue will come. So alone, neither of these approaches will solve this issue. We can't build our way out of this, but neither can we just keep throwing money at the problem because it's a money pit. You'll never be able to put enough money into affordable housing to actually address the issue. When the typical income restricted housing unit costs about $430,000 to build per door, think about how much money that means, multiplied by 50,000 or so. And again, that's 2019. So you can't pay your way out of it. You can't build your way out of it. We have to do both. We must. And the final point is success is going to take years, if not decades, to realize. Any policy that you implement today from the Housing Action Plan will take years to materialize. Even the first structure will take a long time. The number of structures that you might hope to get will take even longer. And so it is going to take a long, long time. It took us decades to get into this problem. You can start counting, I start counting at kind of the post-war era, the suburban expansion in the post-war. You can look back just to the 1980s and 1990s in GMA, but this is going to take decades. It took a long time to get here. We have a long road to go, and we need to have the perseverance to see it through. So that is my presentation. Thank you very much. Sorry again for being late, but I'll stay for any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
My pleasure.
Data there. Does anybody have any questions for Chris? Michelle?
I have a comment. I've seen so many presentations on housing, and this was so amazing. It was such a great load of information for all of us. So thank you so very much for taking the time to present to us. It was so educational. I'm glad you're going to attach your presentation, because I was going to ask for it, because it's got just such great information. So thank you so very much.
My great pleasure. Thank you.
Deborah, then Jan, then Mike.
I'll just start with one. I have a whole list, but I'll just start with one and let the others, maybe they'll ask the same questions. But thank you, Chris. This was excellent. And thank you for bringing it to Arlington too. That was important for me to see that. So I appreciate that. But are there areas in our nation or even in our world that we can look at that maybe got the aha of how to fix this problem, and maybe are even just 5 years ahead of us or 10 years ahead of us in bringing more affordable housing to their families? And I'm talking that individual housing, not huge apartment buildings, but cottage housing, whatever you want to call it. But are there other areas that we could learn from that are doing this?
Nationwide, yes-ish. Minneapolis, somewhat famously a few years ago, passed Minneapolis 2040. The state of Oregon and states of California have modified their single-family zoning codes to allow middle-density housing in all single-family zones. That bill was brought up in the legislature and did not make it through this year, but that was Washington State's attempt to mimic that. That's something that can be debated whether that's the right approach for Washington State. But fundamentally, that's what we need is something that gets different housing types in our communities. The one thing that I didn't comment on in this presentation is it's all about variety. Where is a starter home in the city of Arlington? Where are starter homes built in the city of Arlington? If they're not there now, where are they going to be created? The first question before that is, what is a starter home? What is the starter home of today? And the answer is, to your question, Deborah, is where do we have cities, towns that have a zoning code, a land use policy framework that supports housing for new households, the creation and preservation of housing for new households and for senior households. We've sure got the family house down for two and a half kids and a white picket fence and a dog. We've got that down pat. It's the beginning and the ending parts that we're struggling with. And I don't have conclusive proof that Minneapolis or Oregon have seen real results, but it's early yet. Like I mentioned, this will take decades. I think it's too early to say that those have succeeded or failed. Worldwide, there are some examples, but you run into cultural challenges where in Berlin, for example, most people actually rent and they're very happy about that. In America, if you say everyone should rent, you run into, whoa, but the home is the primary wealth building vehicle of the American household. And so you've got to try and address or untangle that issue first before you can start to make real solid comparisons worldwide. I can say that in a city in Vienna, if I recall correctly, over 60% of the housing stock is government owned. And Vienna is a nice place to live. But there's a lot of cultural differences in how we understand housing that we'd have to unpack first.
Okay, I think Jan was next and then Mike.
Oh, okay. I just have a point of clarification on the list of the salaries. Were those beginning salaries?
In the table of combining incomes?
Yes.
Those are median.
So like the median teacher is only making 76,000?
That's the median middle school teacher region-wide is making 76.
Okay, I know most of the ones I know are making over 100 grand. That's why I asked. So thank you.
Yep. Yeah, that's median, which, that's looking at all middle school teachers. And I can share that database with you. It's pretty easy to browse through. But it is region-wide, so it includes Pierce County and King County, which might have different figures. It also includes, beginning teachers, brandy new, and also seniors well through their career. But
okay, thank you.
Okay, Mike, your turn. Oh, Mike, you're still muted.
Got it.
There we go.
Okay, hi, Chris. I'm so glad that you're here tonight. It's been a long time coming and it's an excellent presentation as always. I think you've touched on this, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. To fix this problem, it's a long journey. But as the old saying goes, it starts with a single step. And so I guess my question to you is, what could be or should be that single first step that a community like Arlington can take to begin to make a dent, at least, in this big problem that we have?
What I know you want to hear is about the actual policy change, but I have a slightly different answer, and that is reach out to the community. You have to have a conversation with your community about what the city looks like and what it will look like in 5, 10, 20 years. And that has to involve a lot of people. And I don't mean, let's write a report and have a citizens advisory group and we're going to study this thing to death. I mean, talk to people about what does a home look like? Everyone in your community has an experience with shelter. It's a fundamental human need, whether it's an overpass, whether it's a home, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a tent in someone's backyard, a car. Everyone has experience with shelter. You can't avoid needing shelter as a human being, everyone in your community has a voice about what your homes can look like, what a place to live can be. The Pueblo Indians in many hundreds of years ago in the Southwest lived in a very different way. And there are infinite number of ways to live. And that's what I mean about asking the community, what does a home mean to you? What can it be? And something that I was discussing with Darrington is, to the planning commissioners that were on the call, no planning commissioner wants to make the wrong decision. To propose something and start to move forward with something that when you actually let it loose in the public realm, gets the pitchforks and torches out. Nobody wants to do that. That sucks. I've watched it happen in Edmonds, where the former mayor of Edmonds stepped out of the meeting and called the police because things were getting so hot in the public meeting because people were that upset about what was being proposed. You need to have a discussion with the community and talk about what can a home be. And that's really important and critical, is before you can make any changes to what the city's future is like. Now, actual policy changes, getting to the question I think you wanted me to answer more, is it's important to recognize we're not going to solve this with a single bullet. There's no single answer to this, and it's incremental and long term, like you said. But starting to prove the viability of different housing types. I was on an email chain this evening or morning, whenever, with Mayor Tolbert and Deborah, talking about a proposal I made to the city of Linwood, where I proposed to the city when they asked me what should we do with our American Rescue Plan Act money. I said what you should do, or at least consider, is you should think about supporting a pilot program for middle density housing options. What the city could do, what any city receiving ARPA money could do, is put that in as a construction financing loan for new housing that is also income restricted to 80 or 100% AMI. That's a requirement of ARPA. But the problem that gets over is, in conversations with builders, the biggest pain in their butt whenever they're building something new or trying to do something that's not a single family home is construction financing. Is the banks that fund that construction are outrageously risk averse. It's not impact fees, it's not zoning, it's not setbacks, it's not environmental regulations, it's construction financing. The banks want a guaranteed return on their investment, and they're scared of risk. And so the more money a city can put in as a pilot program, a supporting fund to actually do something innovative and take some of the risk out of that equation to demonstrate the project's viability, will show the private market, oh, this actually can work. Oh, that does work. Okay. And then you might actually start to see that. And of course, there's a lot of steps that come in along the way. You need to have the zoning that supports it. You need to have a builder willing to do it. You need to have this and this and this. But as a concept, I think that's a great thing that the city could do. And, the HAP is great. The Housing Action Plan is fantastic. So I could just pick I tried to do something that wasn't just picking from the list of the Housing Action Plan. That would be cheating.
I was thinking maybe that since the county council passed their 1% of sales tax to housing, we have to have a regional approach to this. I mean, it's like I appreciate what you said. There's no single city or no silver bullet solution to this problem. So it's going to be how we come together as a region. And so I'm looking forward to the HEART group for the county being reconstituted and meeting again to see if some of these ideas, like financing and helping where the risk is involved in building, because quite frankly, we're going in a really bad direction. If the only way people can own homes is a starter home, which is not being built anywhere in Snohomish County, or they have to have subsidized housing from the government, we're really going just in a bad direction. And if government has to get involved at the local level in building housing or financing housing, we're talking a fundamental shift in the way we view our responsibilities to the community. So I'll let the council know, for the first time ever this last week, the Puget Sound Regional Council, which is a regional transportation planning organization, pretty much involved in the infrastructure and the building of the transportation systems in the 4 counties area, has released a housing plan to go with their Vision 2050, that they realize that the housing crisis has no brighter future than what we're looking at today with Chris's presentation. And so we must look at it at policy level from a regional point of view. So I'll share that plan. I'll send the council a link to that very long plan if they'd like to read it.
It's actually linked in the presentation. The bullet point that mentioned 50,000 unit shortfall in 2021, there's a hyperlink right there before it. So
Okay,
already got it covered for you.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Get back to me. Don, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, just one question, sort of concern, is the correlation, as you pointed out, Chris, is the 9% increases in wages over all these years versus the 95% increase in the homes and stuff. So I'm just concerned that we'll always have that separation with that cost of the wages versus the cost of a home or rent.
I understand where you're coming from, but that wasn't always the case. Given the loan terms that I was assuming, in 2000, the required household income and the actual household income were about the same. It wasn't always like this in Snohomish County. We definitely always had households that were struggling, but not to the degree that we do today. Yeah, I think it is a fixable problem. We can look back in the data far enough to see when it wasn't as severe an issue. I do think that we can get out from underneath this. That being said, there is a national issue at play as well. That is that Washington State was the third most popular state to move to in the nation between 2012 and 2016. Those numbers tapered off a little bit, probably because homes were so outrageously expensive in the 2016 to present era. But nevertheless, Washington State has a lot going for it. Not just Amazon, Microsoft, Boeing, and a extremely robust economy, but it has natural beauty. It has a lot of other things to recommend it. Washington's a very popular place to be, but mostly economics. Where most people are coming from is the Midwest and the Rust Belt, which are places of very low economic opportunity. So a lot of people are moving here in search of that economic opportunity. Most of them also were below 35 years old in that 2012 to 2016 survey. That it was Harvard that did that. So we have a national issue as well. Just like I can't say, it would be inappropriate to say it's one city's responsibility to fix. Neither can Washington State alone fix it, because this is truly a national issue where people are leaving the Midwest and the Rust Belt in search of economic opportunity in Texas and Washington. Florida was the highest recipient, but I expect that actually was mostly older Americans moving to Florida. So Texas and Washington are the two major growth centers. This is a national issue, without question.
Well, we really appreciate you, and I know the council will look forward to getting your presentation in their email as well. Thank you, Chris.
I'll have it sent to you in just a few minutes.
All right, very good.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. All right, have a good night. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, so our final item this evening for the workshop is the report from the Community and Economic Development Department. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. So the CD report for this, well, actually it's a combination of a couple of months here since I've been a little remiss in getting my reports out here. One of the things that I did want to point out here is in our staffing, this year we're going to see an increase in training requests, and that's by design. I really want to see that there is a different skill set with everyone within CED department, so that one individual or two individuals don't possess certain skill sets that the others don't have. And so employees have been asked to submit their training requests, and there are some mandatory trainings, especially for the permit techs that they are undertaking right now. So looking forward to seeing how the end of the year plays out here, and the responsibilities that these individuals will take on. With the current contracts, HKP Architects has finished with our Old Town Residential District design standards. That will be coming to council, I believe, on the 14th of this month, or of March, to be presented. And so we'll be looking for an adoption of that on the 21st of March. The 59th Avenue Complete Streets project is finally completed. The last of that took place last week. And so the reconciliation of all the pay apps and project closeout will be taking place here the next couple of weeks in order to be ahead of the end of that grant period. The project turned out really great, was within budget and provided some long overdue safety elements. So I'd like to give kudos out to Nova and Lana and Brian for their hard work on this project. And if you haven't been by there, you should take the time to drive out there and take a look at it. It turned out very nicely and did give a lot of safety elements to that area. Challenges, and so, you know, if you may remember, applied for a transit-oriented development grant last fall. That grant ran out of funding. It went to jurisdictions that had light rail, and so we really weren't in the hunt for that, according to Commerce. But there was some residual money left over from the Housing Action Plan Implementation Grant, and so we applied for that. And by the time I got this report out on Wednesday, I hadn't heard back from Commerce, but I did hear the day later from Commerce that we were successful and got $100,000 from that grant to move forward. So that money will be used for doing some preliminary analysis of the Smoky Point corridor, and this is in anticipation of doing a sub-area plan for the corridor with hopefully with a planned action EIS to go with it. So that'll give us the opportunity to really analyze the corridor, see what kind of marketing will need to be done there, what kind of businesses would be successful there, types of housing along the corridor, and what the ultimate yield of housing will be along the corridor. So very important information, and this will be very important for us as we go into our 2024 comprehensive plan update. So one way or another, I'd like to be able to get that sub-area plan done before 2024, but this is a great step towards that. Moving forward, Amy is currently putting together the 2022 docket. And so there were a couple of items I'll let you know that we placed on the docket simply because we only had the opportunity to get it in before the last day in January. And so as things have turned out, two of those items will be removed out of the preliminary docket moving forward because there were other ways in order to accomplish it besides going through the docketing process. The two items that will be coming forward still, though, are the York property rezone, and we're doing a multitude of changes to Title 20, and it looks like a lot of change to Title 20, but it's very much just textual. And so as some things took place in 2020 with the zoning changes and some things that happened there, it was never reflected through into Title 20. So a lot of that has to do with just housekeeping to keep up with changes that occurred during a previous docketing period. Opportunities that we've seen recently. Moving forward here, I put together a 15-page request for proposal to solicit for consultant services for the production of the 2024 comprehensive plan. 15 pages is a lot. Typical RFP is somewhere between 5 and 7. So, but there's a lot of information in this RFP, and I did that intentionally so that the consultants that were looking at this would really understand what we're trying to accomplish with our comprehensive plan. and they get a good idea about how we want it to be formatted, how we want it to be laid out, information and the direction that we're going. And so it will answer a lot of questions up front so that they can make a good proposal and submit back to us. So, but it does take some time to put that together. And now I'm working on another RFP for the other, for the HAPI grant. So I just got it done last week and it'll go up for advertisement this week. So a lot of things going on there. If you might remember, there was kind of a lag in people coming in for our general information meetings last fall. They really tended to not want to come in for a meeting, but they inundated us with a lot of emails and phone calls and whatnot. But things are stepping up again, and as you can see, there's been a lot of activity with the with people doing their feasibility on properties and types of things that they can build throughout the city, and it's very broad spectrum. There's a lot of different different things going on right now, or people looking at different types of projects moving forward. So, and I wanted to make sure there was a link that I provided in here for the monthly project status. It was highlighted in blue, and I don't know if all of you clicked on that link to open it up, but I'll start including this in the quarterly report. So it will give you specific data on what projects, where they are in status, and so it'll tell you every project that we have permitted in the city right now. And so if you take the project list and go and look at the current project map, it will give you a lot more detail of what the project is, and you can then correlate it with the location on the map. 168. So this is the new alignment that was built with the Amazon project. The medians are in, the first lift of asphalt is in there. And so it's constructed from 43rd all the way over to 51st. And that will be utilized for a detour route as the roundabout is being constructed at 43rd, 172nd. So it'll remain with that first lift of asphalt on the ATV until after that period, and then they'll come back and put the final lift on the roadway itself. But it will be quite functional with that first lift of asphalt. So if you get an opportunity, you might want to run over there if you're going over towards Walmart on 43rd or down 51st, you'll be able to see it. And I provided some pictures of the current construction. Then upcoming planning commission items, like I mentioned, the 2022 preliminary docket will be going through planning commission for them to review that on March 1st and then to a public hearing on March 15th. And then it will come to city council to see the preliminary docket on the 28th, and then back to on the April 4th for the adoption of the docket itself. So any questions that anybody might have with current events?
Don has a question, and then Jan.
Hey, Mark, just a quick question. You
Yes.
mentioned on the 168th, you mentioned 168th, the detour while they're doing the 43rd roundabout. Is 172nd going to be shut down?
No, but the access in and out of Walmart in the Gateway Shopping Center will be affected. So this provides for the alternative route around that, so you don't have to be involved with the construction site itself.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Jan?
Okay, I have one real quick question and then another. But within the list of the things that are happening, you have SFR, and I was curious as to what that stood for.
Sorry, single family residence.
Okay, thank you. And then the other thing, Heather and I both live in Glen Eagle, and we received notification, I believe it was yesterday, that said that the HOA board had stopped the development on 67th and 188th. Is that true?
No.
Okay, thank you. That
No, the
helps a
project
lot.
is still, the project is still available to build. It just won't, I mean, if the access road does not get conveyed over for public roadway, they'll still build the project. But instead of having that alternate route around the back in order to 188th, they will have a driveway on Woodlands Way to access that property. And so, you know, we looked at this, and the developer will have to convey this to the HOA up there, is that, you know, the project can still be built. It won't be the same as what they proposed. But, you know, they have to really consider, we looked at this very closely, that roadway section that ran around the back and tied into 188th really provides for not only for the development itself and routing that traffic, but it provides for an alternate access over to 188th to a future signalized intersection, so that the people out of Glen Eagle or Woodlands can utilize that to get over to a signal in order to be able to go southbound on 67th. Because, you know, anybody that comes out on Woodlands Way to 67th knows what the effort it is to get and make a left-hand turn on the 67th to head southbound.
Right.
So this actually provides for a better, safer route for them. So there's just some things they really need to consider with what was proposed originally. And then, you know, if they're going to prohibit that tract from being developed into a roadway that serves the community, then that traffic will come out on the Woodlands Way and not have that alternate route. So, you know, a lot of things will happen there, and it may not be the project that they originally looked at, but there was a lot of value to the project that was being presented. So I hope, you know, hopefully they take the time to look at that with a different set of, you know, with a different lens, as opposed to it just being, you know, we stop growth here, because that isn't the case. The zoning allows for that mixed use to be developed there. It would just be a different configuration and in size. So,
yeah, well, with Glen Eagle, we have new management, which I'm not real happy with, and board members. And so it's been kind of hectic over here now with the stuff we get. So I'm glad to hear that that's going to progress. And I would really like to see that road and that light. So thank you.
well, and the nice thing about it is with Chris's presentation, you know, it was great timing, because this is the linkage that we're talking about. You know, if you have a housing crisis occurring and you have people trying to stop growth to be able to put housing units in your city, that's part of the problem. That's part of the detrimental issue you have when you don't want development to occur. You're just adding to that burden on your housing. So,
yeah, thank you. I appreciate your response.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, my computer booted me off. I had to come back, so I missed that last little bit you said, Mark. But so one thing I'll say, and maybe you said this to Jan, but I would encourage the any of the homeowner associations to contact Chris Collier, because I know he'll come and help them to understand what's happening in our community, and that we need to think about everybody, not just our own little neighborhoods. But that's one thing. I was curious with some of the new projects, the axe throwing place.
I know, it's great.
And I know that one was opening in Boise a few years ago when, you know, Jenny worked in the planning department. So I'm just assuming that any liability insurance and different things are being taken care of, so that, and the city in no way is going to end up with any lawsuits because we've allowed this kind of a business in the city. So just curious.
Well, they have to be licensed and carry their liability insurance before they could even get licensing. So yeah, no, we're looking forward to it. We're actually going to join and have our own
I had a
Or
feeling
throwing
you guys would be there. Okay.
It's a fun activity. If you haven't
Oh,
tried it, I encourage
it's
everybody to
wonderful.
try it.
I grew up chopping wood.
Heather, go ahead.
Deborah, I just wanted to say, I have been axe throwing and it's a heck of a good time, but to get in the front door, we had to sign a release of liability that was, golly, I think it was 2 pages long. So the liability ends up squarely on the axe thrower, not on anybody else. You go in there to do it at your own risk, but there was hardly any risk. I mean, you're in
They're
chain
in
link cages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Axe outside of the cage, which goes floor to ceiling in a narrow, I mean, it was maybe 6 feet wide. And a lot of the axes, you know, when you throw them, they just clunk and hit the ground. Pretty
Well, maybe
harmless.
yours did, Heather.
Well, I looked around and they also, this particular organization also served alcohol and a lot of axes were hitting the ground. So
Maybe this would be a good bonding for the city council at some time, Mayor.
It definitely could be. It could be. All right, are there any other questions for Mark this evening? Mike?
I just want to say that I noticed on his list of new programs, general information meeting with Safeway for a 10,000 square foot addition down on 204th Safeway. And let me tell you, the number of people that come up to me talking about needing a new store or a bigger store or talking about stores is never ending. And so this is great news for a lot of people living in Arlington. So I appreciate that and I hope it goes through.
Yep, it's underway. We're reviewing it right now.
All right, well, thank you, Mark. We always appreciate your monthly reports. We look forward to them.
Great, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Well, do we have any administrative report this evening?
Just quickly, I wanted to touch on, so the governor has kind of given us an early release on mask wearing. So effective March 11th at midnight, he's lifting the mask wearing requirement for indoors. And so we'll follow suit with that. So beginning on the 12th, employees won't be required to wear a mask when they're in city facilities or in city vehicles. However, we're still going to provide masks, barriers, and additional sanitation. And so any of the employees that want to wear masks or visitors will be provided a mask to wear. Public meetings, we can get back to in-person public meetings. So we'll do that effective April 1st, which means the April 3rd council meeting would be our first meeting face-to-face. We will continue to live stream the public meetings, council meetings, planning commission and airport on YouTube so that the public can view them on YouTube. And until further notice, we'll also provide an opportunity for any public that wants to make public comment remotely can do that through a Zoom link like we are doing currently.
And I just would add to that and remind the council that if any council member is going to miss a meeting and desires to Zoom in, we have capability for one person to do that. So, and we'll just do it on a first ask, first serve basis. So if you know that you're going to miss a meeting, you might get your schedules in to us so that, again, first ask, first served. All right, Deborah?
A question about in-person meetings. So what I would hope that for our workshops, the layout could go back to our old traditional where we're sitting around facing each other, if possible, because that's just so conducive to good conversation rather than the long, but you know, whatever you think. And I know with YouTube that might be awkward because some of us would have our backs to the camera maybe, but as far as conversation, which that is the purpose of our workshops, is to have some good give and take. To me, it's just more conducive to be where we're facing each other rather than the long council table. So just a thought or a question.
Looking around at all of our cameras are on one side of the room. But we'll talk to Brian Carey and see if that's feasible.
Thank you.
All right. I was going to report on the PSRC housing plan, which I had a chance to do at the end of Chris's presentation. And as Chris said, there's a link to it in there. It's pretty historic because it's the first time ever that the Regional Transportation Planning Organization has developed a housing plan. So that's never been done before. So it should be interesting for you to take a look at the very first inaugural one. And now it's time for any comments from council members. Michelle?
I just wanted to comment on what Deborah said. I absolutely agree also, and I get the cameras could be an issue, but I feel like it's extremely productive when we're sitting in that format that we used to sit in, and we could look at each other and discuss things. I thought it was a great setup, so I would agree with that. So sorry, I raised my hand when Deborah got done talking, but I don't think anyone saw me. So.
Well, I was actually trying to move through the agenda and get to the council comment part. So,
So anyways, yeah, I would just
yeah,
want
we'll
to say
check with technology to see if we're able to do that. We heard. Any other, Don?
Just another question for Paul on the, I think we talked here a while back of painting, striping and stuff, the crosswalks and so forth. Have you guys gotten the paint? Have we got the paint where we can start scheduling that kind of work to be done?
Well, we're just at the beginning of that for this year. We don't usually do it until the weather's conducive for it. I don't know with the supply chain. Last year, that was our big issue with supply chain. We just couldn't get the striping paint. We got a little bit done, but not very much. So our hope is we're a year behind, and so our hope is that we can get more done this year. So I'll keep you informed as we move through that.
Is there some way we can put that on like a so many years schedule cycle that we can plan? Just set it up to like the crosswalks downtown. We do certain ones this year, and next year.
Yeah, we have it on we do it on a rotating schedule. Some of them are more frequent than others because, for instance, downtown or some of the higher traveled roads wear out faster, and so they're done more frequently. But all of the striping is on a schedule to be redone. Now, having said that, we do look at it as we're building that to make sure that there aren't roads that, like I said, are more frequently traveled that are wearing out faster and need to be done. Last year was just the only thing that was holding us up was nobody could get striping paint. So what got done was very limited. There was a very limited supply spread out amongst all the public entities.
Yeah, I just see all like where we put the money into the crosswalks and stuff on Main Street that look sort of like a brick path, and they've been pretty much wore out for quite a few years.
Yeah, that inlaid thermoplastic that we used on the brick does not work. We went back to the single white line stripes, which been added with the thermoplastic, and Public Works was working on some decorative crosswalks for Olympic Avenue. So that's something that's in the works too. Again, we're just material.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to avoid doing something like the thermoplastic, something that doesn't last and doesn't work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I just knew there was some talk about it here a while back and having issues with the material. Mm-hmm. And I think there was also some talk about the roundabout down there by 7-Eleven, where everybody straight lines it through now.
Yeah, the roundabouts on Division is in the works to be redone, which would include those traffic circles.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other comments from council members this evening? So we only have one item on our agenda that's going to move forward to next week. So I'm not even going to give you the option to put it on consent agenda. And that we had no members of the public that wish to speak to the council this evening.
Okay, and no executive session?
No.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Good night, Steve.
Night all.